Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. As always, we are going to be pulling back the curtain on the messier realities of leadership and politics. I'm Kristin, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Ron. Ron, give us a conference update.
Oh, yeah. We've announced this a couple times, but December 5th, we're having the Forward Operations Leadership and Entrepreneur Conference.
Oh, yeah.
And Kristin and I are going to be together. It's in Summerville, South Carolina. Please go to the website with a number 4, W-A-R-D, operations.com. We've got 7 dynamic speakers. It's just going to be a great, great event. We've got some people traveling from around the country to come. So we're really excited about it. And Kristin, I've never heard you speak live. How about that?
Oh, right. Yeah, this will be great. Same with you, actually. I mean, I've seen playbacks of it.
That's true.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And I have a few of my girlfriends coming with me, so that'll be fun. Remind people, how far outside of Charleston is Summerville?
Summerville is about 23 miles from Charleston. And I would like for our audience to say a prayer for me. I'm going to be stuck with Kristin and her friends. I'm going to be driving Miss Daisy or Uber X. I'm not sure what I am, but
Uber X, yeah.
I guess
that is
I'm
the
your
only
tour
Uber
guide.
I use, by the way. I went with the cheap Uber before, and there were like stains on the seat, on the upholstered seats, and yikes.
Yeah, I actually, that's so funny you said that. My buddy Phil, I told him I was going to borrow his 1997 Dodge pickup truck to haul you all around.
Yes, that's amazing. Oh, goodness. Well, it's going to be fun. And anyone that's interested in expanding just your mindset, I think it's like all about having that growth mindset. We covered that in the last episode. And it's important that we challenge ourselves that way and our thought process. And it's a great time to take inventory on where are you at, where do you want to be, and what's getting in your way.
No, it's very true. And you know what, Kristin, for our listeners, since people have been so faithful, if you do live in the area and you want to come, at checkout, enter the coupon code IMPACT, and it will take it down to $99. There's people pay hundreds up to $1,000 for a conference like this. $99, and that's lunch included.
That's awesome.
So we would love to see you, and we're going to record a couple episodes. I've got a little photo shoot lined up. Kristin, I'm just going to need you.
I didn't know that.
I know. I hadn't told Kristin that, and I'm going to need you to filter my photos and stuff. But
I got you.
Make my muscles a little smaller.
Smaller, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm always getting those eye bags. That's my main thing. I'm like, let me just filter off those eye bags. So y'all, I do have a little bit of an eye bag situation in IRL. Ron will see soon enough. But okay, so we're going to dive in to one of the most ambitious and potentially divisive topics that we've tackled thus far. Ron, lead us into where we're going here.
I got to tell you, Kristin, this is a topic I think any leader, number one, if you're a leader and you don't know anything about history or politics, you got a hole in your game. There's a chink in your armor. You've got to know your history, and you should be up on world events and political situations. I've taught that for years in leadership.
Nobody likes an ignoramus.
They don't. And whether we like it or not, I do hope that there will be a time there can be some more unity. I don't think there's ever going to be a unified country unless, God forbid, something happens like 9/11 kind of thing that unified the country for 2 weeks maybe.
Yeah.
But I do hope that we start to realize that if we pull together, that we could bring this country back out of this decline, and we are definitely in a decline. Just to lay a quick history, Kristin and I have talked about this offline, but I remember a time, you guys know that we are conservative. We make that very clear, although we focus a lot more on leadership.
Right.
And we appreciate everyone that listens to the podcast. So I hope this won't be offensive, but it's us. This is what you get with us. But I remember Kristin being really excited about George W. Bush. It seemed to be a new day, a new era. And to be honest with you, overall, it was business as usual. Yeah, there were some conservative points of view that were good and made you feel better, but I still felt, taxes were extreme, and that's something people need to study the history on taxes.
Yeah.
The situation with the Iraq War left a stain on us as a country, but I'm still, I'm a soldier. I'm still supportive. We got rid of Saddam. We helped a lot of people. I justified things in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the aftermath, this big company called Halliburton gets all these contracts. I did my own little research and found out Dick Cheney was on the board of Halliburton, if not the CEO. I can't remember that. But I remember in my mind thinking, something doesn't seem right to me.
Right.
And so I believe, and guys, we're not big conspiracy theorists, but I believe there's big corporations have been ruling our country for years, including our health, from everything from the way we spend our money to how we think, vote. It's all out there, folks. What do you think, Kristin?
Oh, absolutely. And, I think at this point, we need to be discerning. Everyone should be. I don't care if you're left, right, or center, right? We need to be questioning things and looking deeper into things before we form our opinion and take what the government feeds us as gospel. So that's one huge thing. I had the same thing with Bush. I felt like he had this twinkle in his eye. I felt that he was trustworthy. He appeared to love our country. And it's interesting, Cheney and Bush, both of them really benefited from the war industrial complex, right? They got very rich.
Yeah.
Military industrial complex. They became very wealthy from it. And you have to pay attention to that. You can't just swipe that aside. You have to look into that and then understand, okay, so they're benefiting, they're putting our country in this direction. It doesn't matter how many men or women we are losing and how many people on the other side, innocent, women and children. And so it's concerning. And, that's one thing I'm very excited about with President-elect, right, Donald Trump, is he has a very low tolerance for going to war, right? And that's something, I don't care if you're a liberal, that's something that you should get behind, especially unnecessary war. And we've been engaged in way too many of them. And I'm excited for this. You've probably heard of Doge, DOGE. And that's what Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be heading. And that is, what is it? Department of
Efficiency.
Government efficiency.
Yeah.
Doge. So I already have a friend that went and ordered Doge shirts. It's hilarious. But anyways, that's going to impact all of us. And so today we're going to dive into this plan to eliminate government waste, which again, this should be a universal win. We need to really start thinking that way. An overhaul of the federal system. Again, anytime we say government, anytime we say federal, those are your tax dollars. They're not coming from a magic money tree. That's our money, right? So we should be excited about cutting waste.
Yeah. And it's taxed about 20 times, by the way. I will tell you something,
oh my gosh,
Kristin, and this, if we do have liberal listeners, the last time there was any progress really, and it wasn't major, was under Bill Clinton. They reduced government, balanced budget. They did some things. Now, it was the one rare time that Clinton worked with Newt Gingrich. So people don't understand, but spending comes out of Congress. The president has to sign off on a budget. The president submits a separate budget. But at the end of the day, Congress controls spending to a large extent. Yeah. So there's got to be cooperation. And we talk about history, you need to know how Congress, the president, the executive branch, judicial branch, and legislative branch works. We've been ignorant for too long, folks. We've been ignorant for too long. I had someone tell me, by the way, Kristin, they listened to our episode where we explained the federal courts and P. Diddy.
Oh, yeah.
And I had someone tell me, it said, I did not know how the federal courts worked. I really liked that. I forgot to tell you that.
That makes two of us. I learned a lot that episode, and I'm so glad that I took more of a interviewing you, because I really didn't know much about that at all. So I thought that was fantastic.
And I think in the future, maybe we need to do that a little bit with the branches of government and how this whole thing works. But We'll get into the topic.
Absolutely. So diving into, I just want people to have a basic understanding of how many people are employed by the government, by we the people. So as of September of 2023, the U.S. federal government employed approximately 2.95 million people, almost 3 million people. And that is including civilian and military personnel. And if you want to go fact check me, USA Facts, a lot of information there if you want to dive into it. And I'm looking to see, they're actually that we should have those 2024 numbers really soon here, but they weren't out yet. So Trump's proposals could drastically reduce those numbers. And this is a good thing. I know it's a touchy subject, Ron, and I know you worked for the government, right? So, and there's so many wonderful men and women who do. So we understand that, and we understand that there are impacts that could be negative with this. But this is a business style approach to government work, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that, Ron?
No, absolutely. And if you remember when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he literally laid off right at 80% of the people. And because there was all these redundancies, there were positions they didn't even know their job description. Yeah. And he found that it could run a lot more efficient. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at this holistically, and I'm hopeful, but as we increase our fuel production, and it's going to affect everything in the economy. So I hope that when these layoffs come, and they are coming, that these people will be able to find employment elsewhere, that the economy will be thriving.
Actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, Ron, because I just listened to a podcast. I believe it was one of Tucker's guests, and he was talking about how there is such a need right now for people to work all throughout the United States. There is a deficit in employees right now, and that there should be a position for every one of these folks that would be laid off from the government in the private sector.
No, that's very true. And Kristin, for years, one day I stood in Washington, D.C. I went there a lot. And I looked at the Department of Education. I was walking down the street, and I pointed and said it out loud. I said, if I ever become president, you're gone.
Oh, nice.
And I meant it because here's what we need to do, folks. We need to be factually based, policy based, instead of letting our emotions control everything. Right. And what I want is evidence-based approach. If I'm looking at the Department of Education, and every year we move further down on scholastic testing and things throughout the world, and we're now like at 29 or 31. I don't even remember when we used to be in the top 3 or 4. That tells me it didn't work. So you got to try something new. And I believe education should be up to the states.
I'm so glad you said that. Okay, this just came out a few hours ago that Trump is planning to nominate McMahon. What is her name? I'm trying to remember. Is it Vince McMahon's wife to be in charge of the Department of Education? I don't know if you saw that or not. I have to look that up.
It was good until you told me it was Vince McMahon's wife.
I know. That's why you're like,
I imagine her walking out like a wrestler.
Well, it's so funny. All over the internet right now, people are doing those videos where she's like doing the walking out, because she did do some of the antics, right? And she's walking out, and oh man, the internet.
Yeah, but imagine if you're on the other side. This is going to give you a lot of fodder.
It looks from optics from the left. I mean, they do have a lot of ammo on this. But the thing is, okay, so I don't quite understand this decision. I did a little digging. It sounds like the closest relation to the Department of Education, or just education in general, I could find with her is that's what she initially was going to school for. Until she married a billionaire. I don't quite know, but I don't believe she's ever been in education. But you know what? I started thinking about it because I like to really question things. And I'm like, okay, if we run the Department of Education like a business, not a nonprofit, we are going to be looking for, wonderful numbers. So we think about numbers. How many kids are literate, right? What are the math standards? What are the English standards? Like all of these standards that we've just been, throwing to the wayside. You don't have to be a doctor in education to get this department up and running and up to snuff, right? You just have to understand widgets and how to get it there.
Yeah, but there is a strong teachers union. Keep that in mind. So
we'll see if that gets dismantled. My
well-
dad was part of it, so I know I totally get, the teacher thing.
well,
and-
don't think strikes aren't powerful, though. They really
Yeah,
are. So if all the
it's
teachers
true.
walk out, like, you got to be ready for.
Yeah, there's a lot that could happen there.
And to be honest with you, Kristin, we've allowed it to get, I'm talking about the country in general, we've got so marred in the mud that, the mud's gotten hard, and it's going to take a jackhammer. So,
well, she looks like a jackhammer, and she's out on that mat.
Yeah,
We'll
my
see.
point is this stuff can't change overnight. Like, there's going to even be, if you all of a sudden did tariffs, then prices may go up temporarily. There's a lot of things that could happen. So somehow, and I don't know how to get it across, we're going to have to take a little bit more of a long-term view.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be that long, but I think our problem in America is, we've kind of been spoiled a little bit, and we look at instant gratification, and we're going to have a strategic plan, or we're going to lose our country.
I'm so glad you said that, because countries like, and you probably already know this because you studied in, karate, and you understand Japan and Japanese culture. In Japan, a business model, or when they're putting together like a business presentation for a banker, they have a 100-year plan or proposal. 100 years. In the United States, I worked in banking for a long time. I had new business owners come in and present their business proposals to me, and they were looking like 12 months out, right? Like, there wasn't that 100-year vision that you see in Japan. And the longevity of those businesses, they stay open for so long. I mean, I feel like the longest business, I need to look it up, but in Japan was upwards of like 400 years ago. This business was started, and it stayed in the family and stayed in business. But we have to have more of an approach. Now, I don't know about 100 years, right? But that instant gratification, we have to understand that that's just not something that's reality for the long run.
Yeah, and Kristin, China had a 50-year plan. We won't go into details on this episode, but it was to supersede the United States as the superpower on the world stage. And they've been methodical in breaking us down, and we've allowed it.
Yeah, I know there's so much there where, what they're doing on U.S. soil is very concerning. Your old governor, Kristi Noem, she did a lot of deals with China, and she gave away, Kristi Noem, sorry, wrong person. Nikki Haley.
I was thinking, my governor?
No, sorry, Nikki Haley, South Carolina. But when she was governor, she did a ton of deals with China and gave away South Carolina land to China with part of some of those deals. And I just don't think, we have to think beyond just the bottom line too. It's like, should we really be giving away our land and assets to our enemy that wants to take us down?
Kristin, we also had 30 monkeys escape, and you've not even given me condolences. And you know what? 3 are still missing, and there's been hundreds of Bigfoot sightings, but no one seems to want to talk about that.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know about the Bigfoot.
South Carolina is so cool. Big Sasquatch decided to live here. Take that.
Oh my God. Wait, so they're usually in the Pacific Northwest. So is that a new thing?
Yeah, it's moved. You don't even see them. It used to be in Oregon and up in, not anymore. They got sick of y'all's politics, and they've moved to South Carolina.
So they lean right also, it sounds like.
You're right, though. There has been way more sightings lately down south than that used to be in the Rockies and all those places. So.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I went off topic. I'm doing the weave, right? Okay. So let me bring us back. So energy independence is a big part of this plan, right? We've probably all heard drill, baby, drill. People are generally very hot or cold on the topic. Trump is arguing that cutting regulations will lower energy costs and unleash the U.S. fossil fuel production. But critics, there's a lot of them out there, are saying that slashing environmental protections could lead to long-term damage. Now, okay, I have to just say, so did you see the clips? Biden was just out in Brazil in the Amazon, and he was talking about, I guess they're experiencing, quite different, just a ton of weather change, right? So he's out there advocating for I wonder, what is it, global warming now, or is it just global climate change? That way it's just generalized climate change. So he's out there doing that. And then he's done talking with the folks and he just wanders off into the Amazon. Gosh, that was just, I was
You
waiting
had to
for
work
Jeff.
that in, didn't you, Kristin?
I had to. It was wonderful. It's like,
I don't know that I trust that clip, but that's okay.
oh, no, it's 100% legit. I made sure to go find it because Instagram will say it was altered or something, but he just kind of wandered off. He didn't know where to go. But yeah, I was waiting for Jeff from the Survivor to pop out, but 100% legit. But it's just interesting. So we have, and that was the first time a sitting U.S. president has ever been to the Amazon. So I thought that was a little interesting. But it was definitely on the basis of, our concern about, or the concern about environmental protections, right? Yeah. So there's that. And we have Trump on the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Kristin, we won't get into climate change, but I'm saying the hypocrisy that I see when people are preaching and then they fly 20 times in their private jet. And there's another element to climate change is we are going to halt our fuel production, and then we go to Venezuela and purchase it, and they don't honor the climate change. So apparently the climate only changes over U.S. soil, and the rest of the world, they can abuse it.
Oh my gosh. It's like along the lines of, did you see, someone was saying, we want to make electric tanks, like military tanks that are electric, to go bomb the SH out of. I'm like, so we're concerned that our military tanks need to be environmentally friendly when we're bombing the shiz out of someone.
That's where, we've got to go back to, I like what one leader said, uncommon sense. It used to be common, now it's uncommon. But yeah, guys, be careful with the fringes. They tend to have the loudest voices, but there's so much hypocrisy and just bizarre stuff. We got to get our country back on track.
Yeah.
And I hope with these outsiders coming in, that they're going to be able to do that. They're going to do something. And this goes with Republicans and Democrats. This is not a political statement. It's the system has been controlling what we do. And there's leadership principles in this. And I hope people see that it takes a real leader to go against the grain and come in and make changes.
Absolutely. I mean, we've both experienced that in our careers, where you come in and something's been done a certain way. And I would say, especially, and you've probably dealt with it a lot more than I have, because in the government, I think people get pretty comfortable. Where I'm from, people generally, you have to put the work in to stay around, otherwise you're gone. But people don't like change, especially when people that have like a government or teachers with PERS and so I can imagine you faced a little more issue there than I did.
No, it's true. I'm doing executive coaching. I've been coaching this morning, Kristin, and we talked about that it's almost impossible to get rid of a government employee, especially if they're tenured. And it's a sad thing that, you have to go through so much to get rid of someone, and they can abuse people, they abuse taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
And they come right in the next day and do it again. So there's got to be some changes, and there's no doubt there's going to be layoffs, and you are going to hear those people screaming the loudest. And by the way, Kristin, I have a friend, you're going to love this. You'll probably want to put it on a t-shirt. He always says this: liberalism's great until it happens to you.
Oh, that is good.
And it's pretty funny. But yes, there's going to be tons of outcries, and the voices of sanity are going to have to be a little louder and a little more composed, and not knee-jerk, and just keep being systematic, methodical, and let's get this government down. If our founding fathers knew the size of the federal government, they would be in shock. Believe me, you can read any of the old writings. We were never supposed to have a big, huge, massive government.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I want to pivot a little bit and tackle one of Trump's most aggressive proposals, and that's mass deportation. So he has proposed to deport 11 million undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants. I know all the news outlets like to say undocumented, so let me just say illegal immigrants. But Ron, is that even feasible? 11 million. It's a big number.
Well, this is what I tell people. That has to be done incrementally. And the first thing you got to do is try to find, and we have some information, but not a lot, because people are let in the border without any validation, documentation. But we got to look for at-risk immigrants first, and those who have either engaged in a violent crime. Basically, we know nothing about those kind of things. Now, people's stripes will be revealed. If people were criminal when they came in, they're going to start committing criminal acts. But we got to be incremental on that. And that will be a fluid plan as well. It's going to be a real strain on the Department of Justice. It's going to be a strain on Homeland Security. May even take some military intervention because of dealing with Mexico. So that's a complex situation. But my gosh, Kristin, it is such common sense that you don't leave your door unlocked at your house. This one is so simple to me. I get the whole layoffs because that affects your livelihood, but to just have open borders is the most idiotic thing I've ever seen. There's not even a CEO that doesn't lock the doors when they leave the company. Like, you just can't do it. So here we are.
Right. I know. And you know, it's wild. I was explaining this to my kids the other day. I was like, we were talking about my son. He's just, it's like I'm talking to a 20-year-old and he's only 10, but he was saying something to the effect of, how come when I see like Japan, he's really into Japan, or South Korea, they don't have a lot of diversity, basically. He didn't say diversity, but he basically just said everyone looks the same. And I was like, yeah, we're the most diverse country in the world, and we take the most heat for being racist. It's like wild to me. So, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, Tom Holman is the new border czar. And I got to tell you, Kristin, he did an interview recently, and he actually, and I always wondered why they don't, because I've got friends. As a matter of fact, I was really good friends and worked in an audit with the former deputy assistant director of the Border Patrol. And people do not tell the actual stories of the suffering of these, especially young women and a lot of times young men. He was pretty graphic, and he said they had gotten little girls that had been raped, multiple times. So everybody in our mind, we think these really nice people are marching in formation and they're coming over for the American dream. And if it was that simple, but the cartels are shipping people in with ill intent. Drugs are being smuggled in. Like, it's a whole criminal organization. So when we think about this deportation, we need to rethink this, because it's not the way it appears in our minds. This is abuse of a people. Doesn't matter their background or race. They're going to, they're really enslaved by the cartels and the people where they're coming in. Are there some people that just try to come in? Yes, but they're still getting abused. And the first thing you got to do, that's why they already turned one van around, because they knew Trump's coming in. They're not welcome anymore. So the first thing we need to do is hang a no welcome sign.
Right. And that's been hung. I hear people are like the illegal immigrants that are in Ohio. I don't know why Ohio got such a huge influx, but that they're already starting to leave, which I find interesting. So the word is spreading. It is a logistical nightmare with what I say, 11 million. But, I just saw today, Texas has given Trump, or the Trump administration, 1,500 border acres to be used for this mass deportation. Mainly, it looks like for the first phase, which would be people who came here illegally and committed a crime, right? And I just saw today, I hope I don't say her name wrong, Lincoln. She was murdered by an illegal immigrant, and he was just convicted, I think, of 10 counts of
Lincoln
murder.
Riley, yes.
Lincoln, L-A-N.
It's going to be a little bit like an internment camp, to be honest, where we're going to bring people and have them wait, but it's going to be much safer than what we see now. And anyway, that crossed both parties. President Obama deported more people than any other president, but I don't want to get into that. I wish we could just not figure out whose team we're on. Let's look at the goalpost, and we've got to reduce and by the way, I listened to, I think it was a highlight from The View or somewhere where they were saying, we won't have anyone to work, and all of that stuff, that hyperbole, and they inflate things to scare people. That's not the case.
Right.
There's too many people. Now, if you had diversified work skills, like if you had part doctors, lawyers, first responders, all
Right.
of that, but it's just a well-known fact, and it makes me sound bad, but about 85, 90% of those people, they're going to be working in, lawn, garden, those kind of things. So it just is what it is. We're going to have
You're
to
just as
deport.
bad as, what is
We're going
it,
to
Kelly
deport.
Osbourne.
My favorite,
I'm just
yeah,
joking.
my favorite Instagram ad, though, my mother even saw it. It was hilarious. Is the guy crying and said he doesn't want his mother-in-law deported, and he gives her exact address and
Oh,
what
that
time
was
she leaves the house.
hilarious. Oh,
That guy
I
deserves
thought
a
it was
medal.
real in the beginning, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's crazy." And then I listened to the end, and
You
I was like,
realize
"Oh,
he's genius.
genius!"
The
Oh,
satire
that was
is
hysterical. Yeah, satire's the
amazing.
best. So the left. I just want to point this out. So the other side to deporting is they're saying, let's not forget about the human cost, right? Families would be separated. And it's funny, the borders are
Tom
elect.
Holman, yeah.
Yeah, he actually, he did a bit. We use Classical Conversations for our homeschool community, and he promoted them on a podcast he just did. And he's friends with the founder, which I thought was really cool. But he said, basically, someone said, "Oh, families will be separated." He's like, "No, we'll deport them together." So I'm like, hey, you know what? He's not concerned about that. I mean, it's true though, right? Anyhow. So these families, now they're concerned that Trump's going to deport families that have lived in the US for decades. Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. If someone is established, it's more or less going to be the very last grouping of folks that is even looked at, right? It's definitely going to start with the folks that have committed crimes, and there are 1 million plus of those, right? So that's where we're going to start. It's really interesting, though, to watch the public backlash.
Kristin, I think I'm going to run for office. I've got a great idea here.
I want to too.
There's a hierarchy. I told you that this will be incrementally, and the people who have been here and they're established, they're going to have enough time to start applying to become citizens. And
Right.
if people who truly do care about migrants, help them study, help them prepare to
Yes.
become citizens. And as we do that, and I hope President Trump and his administration, that they will work toward, there is a long wait, because when I was in San Antonio recently in the federal building, they had just had a big ceremony and they do the citizenship ceremony. And
Yes.
it's a beautiful, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
We need to be focusing on having more of those, because frankly, those people know more about the United States than our citizens from that test. That test is not easy.
Sad but true, right?
And those people, it is the experience of the people I talk with, they're more grateful to be Americans than Americans. So we do need that. It's like, expediting adoption. If you're anti-abortion, what are we doing to help adoption? We got to come up with real solutions. So let's
Right.
help these people that have been established, and they do great things for our country and they love our country. Let's help them
Right.
become citizens. Now, I'm not talking about a broad sweep of the brush, but I do think that we have to expedite that as well. So this needs to be, again, a comprehensive approach to this whole thing. But this hierarchy that you're talking about, Kristin, they're not going to send out 11 million people in the next 4 years.
No.
It's impossible.
It is impossible. Yeah. No, they're going to triage it just like any other business or hospital, right? You're going to go with the most critical. I find it interesting. So, okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit, if that's okay with you,
Let's pivot
to the regulations and bureaucracy. I'm actually excited. I want to see deregulation. Being in banking for 20 years, I was there when I came in right after the Patriot Act was passed, and people were furious about it. And I saw it, I was ignorant, right? I saw it as a good thing, asking for all this extra ID and documentation, and it's actually quite unconstitutional. But banking in general and businesses, when the country is over regulated, that really hurts business. And it's in the name of protecting people, but it goes beyond that. And deregulation is another cornerstone of Trump's plan. So he argues that cutting the red tape will boost businesses and lower consumer costs. I do believe that to be true. An example, he wants to roll back environmental regulations to increase domestic energy production. Talked about that a little bit earlier. I think that's a huge win. Do you ever drive around and see those giant windmills? I mean, massive.
I didn't know a lot about them until I heard actually Trump talk about it. I did some research. I didn't realize how big they are because I've seen them from a distance.
Right. They're massive. They're not right where I live because I'm in a suburbia, area. But when I drive in Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, they're all over the place. And the more research that's coming out is, one, they're not that effective. Two, they kill hundreds of thousands of birds. It's just a bird funeral, a graveyard underneath. And then once they've rotted out and they're being decommissioned, they're so massive. There's nowhere to put them. You can't even bury them. I mean, it's going to be a graveyard of those things everywhere. And that's just a perfect example of us trying to, be energy conscious, and it's a big fail. So we need to really, that 100-year plan that Japan puts in place when they do something is looking really good.
Each one of these segments are important to me, but I got to be honest with you because I work for the government.
Yeah.
This one's most important to me. Folks, please listen to me. The American economy is a locomotive.
Yeah.
And that locomotive has been held back. We've added excessive weight. I mean, tons and tons and tons, and we've slowed it down. All we got to do is you just open the gate, remove those weights, and that locomotive will take off. Presidents try to take so much credit for job creation. If you get out of the way, the American economy will explode. And the key to that, and we don't have time to go into this, but I talked with a friend the other day. We're talking about lowering fuel prices. But if you start at the pump and you get into trucking, it raises the price of food. Then you have to have housing, building supplies. So it raises the price of that. Every component of the American economy elevates or increases due to fuel prices. You bring fuel prices down, everything's going to follow. And we have a lot of economic sanctions anyway that's going to protect our water. That's part of that I think JFK Jr. is going to look at, or RFK Jr. So you can balance that. Even if I'm concerned about the environment. I think conservatives get a bad rap. I'm concerned about the environment, but there's other ways that you can run clean fuel, natural gas, and all of these things. But in that Anwar province, I have read that there's enough fuel there to heat America for 50 years. We are at a point, we got to make some decisions, and we're going to have to, hopefully, guess what? 100 years from now, maybe there will be a new, different, clean fuel, and we don't need fossil fuels the way we do now. But we got to be practical, and we got to be realistic. And I know if you're liberal and you're listening, you're going crazy, but do your own research. Not what you read about or hear about. Just do your own research.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ron. And, I think it's important that another thing that we don't forget about labor laws. Trump's stance on reducing union power could hurt workers' rights, right? That's a piece. We've done a whole episode on unions and strikes, and Trump views it as making businesses more competitive. I have to agree. When I hear how things run when it comes to unions, it generally means there's price gouging included. But for many, it is a step backwards for organized labor. So a lot of times we'll see what seem to be very blue collar, very pro-America unions will endorse the Democrat candidate. And this makes a lot of sense when we tie it back to why generally conservative-minded folks like Trump, they want that competitive edge there. We want that. We don't want a monopoly. And so that's something to think about. I don't know. What do you know a lot of folks in unions. What do you think about that?
Well, Kristin, we've talked about it. We did an episode on it.
Mm-hmm.
There was certainly a time for it. There always has to be checks and balances. But I think our government's set up now that we can move forward without it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. Okay, so we have I mentioned Doge earlier. That's Musk and Ramaswamy. We also have, so you mentioned RFK, and I think, I think he largely is the reason Trump did so well with folks that were in the middle or on the fence at least. And a unique aspect of his plan is his resilience on the private sector allies, like I just said, Musk, Kennedy. So it's important because these folks know what it's like to run a business, not a nonprofit, not necessarily like run it like an actual profitable business, not a government agency where their money is almost unlimited. So talk to us about Musk a little bit, because he's like, a lot of people are on the fence with him. I think it's because he hasn't come out as, he's not Christian, right? And so there's concern there. Is he really going to uphold conservative values?
Yeah, that concerns me as well. But here's the point. Musk literally single-handedly almost saved the First Amendment in this country.
Yeah.
It was getting to the point that these big conglomerate media organizations controlled everything, including Facebook. And then we find out, as we always do, when the light finally shines, that Facebook was being pressured to censor certain people. And they were doing it, and they could manipulate. They decide the trends, what they want you to read, what they don't. All of that. We're easily manipulated now because of the internet. And it used to be it wasn't that easy, but it is now. But Elon Musk is a visionary, but I don't want any one person to have too much control in the United States. I would say this with any party. So I like the fact, and I don't know if it was ingenious of Trump, but I like the fact that he put Vivek Ramaswamy, because the belief is that those two would report back, one or the other. I'm saying if someone was abusing power.
Right.
And that's what a cabinet's about. That's why we have the hierarchy that we have. And it's a brilliant system. But I am an absolute fan of Elon Musk. I think he's creative. He's done all kinds of good things. But I'm going to tell you the other dichotomy that people can't wrap their head around. So he jumps in and does electric cars. Mm-hmm. The Democrats kind of have a monopoly on that. They are the Green New Deal kind of people they see.
Right,
well, here you've got the number one electric car guy who's now playing ball with conservatives.
Yeah.
So that in and of
minds
itself.
Minds are exploding.
Yeah. So now they've got to destroy him. They can't have him being the spokesperson for electric cars when they don't agree with him. So they're going to I think he is, besides Matt Gaetz probably, and I get the controversy there a little bit, but I think Elon is going to be scrutinized even more than he has been. But the fact that we deal with feelings now, and the fact that he opened up freedom for Twitter, X, has made him already public enemy number one. But I think he's going to rise even higher.
Oh, I agree. Well, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought this up, because if we think about it, legacy media, and I'm including Fox News in that, because if you look at who owns Fox News, right, they're all in lockstep, which is basically, if someone can go look that up, goes back to the Cold War, maybe even further, but it's where everyone is basically on the same page. They get a daily briefing. We're all going to call JD Vance weird, right? They're in lockstep. So you'll see MSNBC, you'll see CNN, right? So that is in lockstep. So we can't rely on legacy media because they're bought and paid for. And then we go to what the Facebook and the Instagram and the Twitter before Elon bought it, TikTok. Now, TikTok is ran by China. There's controversy there. We have, like you mentioned, what is it? What is Facebook and Instagram under again? Meta, Zuckerberg. And he's admitted that, yes, we are censoring. They are still censoring. So we can't rely on legacy media. We can't rely on your mainstream social media. So it really is falling to podcasts like, let's think about Tucker Carlson's podcast, huge. Joe Rogan, right? These big podcasts that, at least right now, are unregulated, and that's where people are getting this real information from. And so it's to say that he saved the First Amendment. I mean, you're spot on, because without X, it would have been really difficult to fish through everything and get the truth.
It's very true. Kristin, let's wind it. I think we've made some really, really good points here.
Yeah.
Let's. What do you think? Is this all achievable?
Yeah, big picture. Yes, I do think so. Yes, his plans are ambitious. I do believe them to be realistic. I'm already seeing the people he is choosing for his cabinet are quite different than the last time. The last time he let basically people that were already in position remain until he realized they were rotten and not going to reflect his vision or carry out his vision. And he's approaching it very differently this time. And so, like anyone, when you have that experience, that past experience to play off of, you're going to be a lot more effective. And we're at the point where, 2016 to 2020, that was, fun and games until the pandemic, right? We're at the point where people can't just put their feet up on the desk now that he's in. We have to move and make moves. And let's just hope in the first 2 years where we have, the House and the Senate, that we can get a lot done and help restore the land. And I truly believe that God has that in store for us, where our lands can be healed. And I'm optimistic. What about you?
Yeah, no, I am as well. But here's the point. There's a mandate, and the American people gave it to this administration. And historically, you only get 2 years with the House. Now, they may be able to disrupt that or change that, but they're going to have to come in and by the way, the opposition, the bells are going to ring for a while. So I would just encourage people to stay focused, stay practical, keep your common sense approach, but be good citizens. And let's try to find a way to heal, as Kristin said, our nation's too divided. No matter who's right or wrong, it's too divided. And we got to get back to some civility where we can talk about issues and discuss things without getting so emotional and taking it so personally.
Yeah, and that would be my 2 cents. We're approaching the holiday season. We have Thanksgiving next week. And my number one for people is, do not ruin your family. Do not divide your family over politics. It's not worth it. And I will say I've changed my stance a bit. Back in 2020, I really had no tolerance, right? And I still have a low tolerance for BS. But when it comes to your blood, you really need to look within. And I think that folks are strong enough to, especially those that are on the right, we have our guy. Things are looking up for us. Do not divide your family and skip Thanksgiving dinners. And if there could just be a mutual respect, I know it's difficult, but if we could at least strive for that. I just hate to see families torn apart over politics.
So don't wear the dark MAGA hat for Thanksgiving.
I think people can pull it together. I'm really working on, again, I don't really have a divided, that divisiveness is just not in my family. But even if it was, I have a sister who was a drug addict for 10 years, right? And she's been sober now. I just went to her 8th sobriety birthday. And I could dwell on when she stole from me, or when she stole my kid's piggy bank, or when she's, all this stuff. Or I could dwell on that, but I have chosen to forgive because family is important. And those things are just really important to me. And so I would just love to see folks not being so divisive with their own family and just taking the high road when it comes to when you're all together. Just get along. Easier said than done, but you can try.
Easier said than done, but we can keep dreaming. Everything starts with a dream.
I know. The enemy wants our families torn apart. Maybe if you have to take that for people that are Christians, I think about that a lot. Even with my marriage, when we get in an argument, I don't pick stupid fights anymore. I'm like, man, why would I? I don't need to get on him for stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I really think, it's because I really think the enemy wants us to be in turmoil, wants us to be at each other's throats. And I'm not going to let him have that.
I agree. 100%.
Love it.
Well, Kristin, this has been really good. I hope our listeners enjoyed this. If you disagree, all I would ask is be practical and think things through. It's okay to disagree.
Absolutely. And leadership, look for the leadership in this message, in this segment that we just put together.
Absolutely.
It's never as clean as it seems. And so you want to look for it, understand, like, leadership can be dirty. And that's why we like to get into it versus just keeping it surface conversation, right?
Somebody should write a book, The Dirty Side of Leadership, I swear.
Somebody should. It's just a great, catchy title. But yeah, I think honestly, like let's just have that basic understanding of you have to work for it and look for it too.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.